we're talking about Thank You, Ma'am. That's a poem by Langston Hughes. And it's funny that this lesson came up today in lieu of the recent events that happened over the weekend in New Orleans. What's a big current event? We talk about current events a lot. What's one of those big current events that happened this weekend? Samaj?
Football player for the Saints, and Will Smith got shot.
Okay. One of the football players for the Saints was recently killed this weekend, and what's seemingly a senseless act of violence. And as I was looking at this, I said, okay, well, this is important that we discuss this because this story, although we haven't read it yet, is a senseless act of violence, and that's something that we want to discuss. That's something that we want to talk about on today. So, David, read our objective for today's class.
Analyze the short story, Thank You, Ma'am, by completing a vocabulary development activity and by doing a close reading of the story.
All right. So, we're going to discuss the do now for a bit. We've already done that exercise. Who wants to read their do now for us? All right, Khalil, we'll start with you.
The best way to convince someone not to commit a crime of robbery or violence is to tell them to think about the people you hurt, what could happen if you get caught, and the people you hurt in your own family.
Okay. Who else? David?
The best way to convince someone not to commit a crime of robbery or violence is to convince them that they do not need to go to jail because that is a possible waste of an opportunity. Instead of in prison, they could be looking for a job. Plus, they will be a felon, have a rap sheet, and won't be able to vote. This person won't be able to enjoy the comfortabilities they once had. Now, all they can do is watch their backs in prison to make sure no harm is done to them.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Gary.
The best way to convince someone not to commit a crime of robbery or violence is to tell them the consequences involved by police. Tell them how it will hurt them mentally and how it will hurt the person that they're done it to.
Okay. Who else? Anybody else? Want to read? Go ahead, Bruce.
The best way to convince someone not to commit a crime of robbery or violence is to take them to church and teach them the right things to do.
All right, so all of those are some good points. All of those are some very good points. There in life you have choices, and that's what we try to teach you all. There are choices that you make. There are paths to right, and there are paths to wrong. But it's important that you think always before acting. We talk about that all the time as well. Think before you act. Think before you speak. Even in class, when I ask questions pertaining to whatever it is that we're working on, don't just raise your hand and then say something. Think before you speak. Think about what it is that you're saying. Think about what it is that you're doing. And when you do those things, when you make that an everyday practice, when that's something that becomes habitual, then at that point, it's second nature. If you always think before you speak, if you always think before you act, then you're more likely to make what kind of decisions? Smarter decisions. Better decisions. Those that will affect you in a positive way long term. All right? So, now, let's look at the big question. Can all conflicts be resolved? That's a big question. That's a big question, and we see that on our papers as well. But that's the big question. Can all conflicts be resolved? Now take a minute, again, to think about that before answering. Can all conflicts be resolved? Formulate a couple of thoughts about that. Think about that question. Can all conflicts be resolved? And then when you have an answer for that, raise your hand. We know that some conflicts are bigger than others, some are smaller. So can all conflicts be resolved? Is there a resolution for every conflict that there is? Mr. Dawson?
Well, I would say if they would have to deal with what type of conflict it is.
Okay, so you think that the determining factor on whether or not it can be resolved is how big the conflict is, all right? So, with saying that, do you feel like smaller conflicts can be resolved or bigger conflicts can be resolved?
Smaller conflict, because it's not that big or major, like, it won't have that major of a consequence.
Okay, Ami,
I think every conflict can be resolved
you think that every conflict can be resolved? Why is that?
because there's a solution to every conflict.
There's a solution to every conflict. Okay, Mr. Kirk?
It's something like what Terry said, it's not that, it's the size of the conflict, but who's in the conflict. Because if
Okay,
there's a conflict and you need to resolve it, you might be able to get through to that person to tell them to stop, but it's probably only temporary and they'll go to someone else and do the same thing.
okay, so in that case, you're talking about a temporary resolution. All right, so, all right, go ahead, Mr. Bill.
I think that all conflicts can be resolved, but in most cases, they can't be resolved peacefully.
Okay, some may not be able to be resolved peacefully. All right, Mr. Roman.
I think that all conflicts can be resolved, just like what Terry and David said, it would depend on the person that's in a conflict, because like some people might hold a grudge, and like, they will never resolve it.
Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Cox.
Well, I say yes and no, because if we would all do our part to help the world, there wouldn't be any conflict in the first place. And I say no because, on the other hand, some people are stuck in their old ways and they just refuse to see the other side of the story.
Okay,
They don't want to put themselves in the other person's shoes.
okay. Now, look at it like this. And I think some of you may have hinted at it, but would you say that with bigger conflicts, it takes more to resolve them than it may with smaller conflicts? Could we say that?
Yeah.
All right, so can someone give me an example of a small conflict that they may have had or helped to resolve, or, you know, it was small, it was quick, it was over with? Mr. Brooks?
Little childish arguments